Good to go.
All right. This is the Board of Health on Nantucket meeting of May 21st, 2026. As usual, the meeting is being recorded both visually and by audio. We have one member of the board, I believe, Carrie.
Yep,
Anna, who is online. Is that right, Carrie? You here?
I am remote.
Okay, so that
sitting
means we
here.
have a full board, and I would like to welcome, sitting to my left, Matt Fee, who is our new member, representing the select board. And
I'm replacing Tom.
we are very, very happy to have you.
Right, well, thank
So
you.
here you are. Okay. Let's start by seeing if there is any public comment from the public, either in person or remotely, about issues or items that are not on the agenda.
Oh, that are not on the agenda?
If you want to make a general. Oh, yeah, you can hold that to the, yeah. What it's a school statement regarding the pre-testing agreement, so we can do it.
Yes, okay, we'll do that at the time of that agenda item. Great.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Madam Chair. I'm here. Oh, my name's Kim Latlip, and sorry, I'm here to voice concerns about the public trust in the Board of Health. At town meeting, the vice chair of the Board of Health stated publicly, "The one at Nobadeer has never once been cleaned. I have the records showing that it has never been cleaned." And that was her referencing the Nobadeer turf. She also stated that at the 2019 GMAX testing showed the field was dangerous. The very next day, Town of Nantucket issued a public clarification directly contradicting those statements. The town confirmed that the Nobadeer turf has, in fact, been professionally maintained under contract for the past 3 years, including regular cleaning, grooming, decompactation, disinfection, repairs, and safety testing. What makes this even more concerning is that on November 30th, 2025, the vice chair herself submitted a public records request seeking documentation related to hardness testing and cleaning and maintenance of the Nobadeer artificial turf. On December 16th, 2025, the town provided responsive records, including a summary report, and the request was closed with no follow-up. The reason I bring this up is simple. If a public official had already received records showing that the Nobadeer turf field had been cleaned, maintained, and tested, then why would that same official stand up at town meeting and tell voters the opposite? That is not a small mistake. That is exactly why trust has been broken. Residents deserve facts, data, and honest discussion. This is all many of us have been asking for over the past 8 months, not fear-based misinformation. Many residents have lost confidence that everything being presented to this community by the Board of Health is objective or being done solely for the good of the community. The conduct and messaging displayed at town meeting raised serious concerns for many people watching. I'll end with this. The Capizzo Stadium project has already gone through years of engineering review, environmental analysis, and testing by toxicologists, scientists, and engineers. It received a yes vote from 4 out of 5 school committee members, passed town meeting by a 2/3 vote, and was approved by nearly 60% of voters townwide. The community has spoken clearly in support of this project. And I have the reports that show that the field has been cleaned and maintained. Would you like to see them?
I can take them.
Is there anyone else who would like to make a comment in the audience? Is there anybody online, John, that has their hand up?
No, not seeing any. quick question on, these are comments for things not on the agenda.
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
And the agenda item on the turf is solely about the pre-testing agreement.
Great, okay, thanks.
All right. Item number 3 on our agenda is approval of minutes. We have a lot of minutes because I think we had not, some of them needed to be adjusted or something like that. So what comments, if any, questions, anything does anyone have here? Carrie, you often have something on this?
No, in the minutes, I'm good. You know, I
Good.
know that we had questions in the past, but I think those have been
Yeah.
cleaned up. My hope is they've been cleaned up.
Jim? Barry?
And I'm gonna recuse. I wasn't here, but I did read them and they are
They seem
complete.
okay.
I was impressed.
Okay. All right, can I have a motion to approve these minutes?
Should we do them one at a time?
Do we have to take them one at a
I
time?
think you can do them in
Do 'em all
one
in
fell
one.
Yeah.
sweep. You should probably
Okay.
you should probably just list the minutes that you are approved, the dates of the minutes. that
Well,
you are
then it
approving.
would be for the 19th of
February.
February, the 2nd of March, the 16th of March, the 19th of March, the 7th of April, and the 16th of April in 2026.
Okay.
You still moving?
Make the motion.
Jim?
I made motion. Second.
All in favor? We have to go by name because
Yep.
Carrie's on. Jim?
Aye. Yeah.
Mary?
Recuse.
And you're recusing. Carrie?
Yes, aye.
Anne says aye. Okay, that's it. That's passed. Number 4, the director's report.
Hello, I am going to be doing the director's report for Rocky here. We have a couple of items on the update. I'm going to talk about very briefly last year there was a blood drive for a long Lyme study that was conducted by Tufts University. Some of the preliminary results are emerging on that. I'll give a kind of quick summary of those and then mention that we are going to be doing additional blood testing, and there'll be additional opportunities to participate in this long Lyme study this coming fall. But essentially, the Tufts study was a blood drive of sorts that took blood from a variety of island residents who had reported Lyme in the past. It tested for antibodies. It found approximately 17% of the around 100 participants had positive antibody results, which means that they had Lyme at some point in their life. This is interesting because it contrasts with the self-report from the people who participated in the study, 32% of which self-reported that they had Lyme in their past. That gap between the 17 confirmed positive and the 32 self-reported can be a combination of factors, including waning antibodies over time, as well as a variety of tick-borne illnesses that present similar to Lyme's, but aren't actually Lyme's and wouldn't activate Lyme antibodies. A similar study done in the 90s showed a 10% rate, but it's a little too early to say that there's a 7% increase in Lyme's disease on individuals on Nantucket because the sample size was smaller in the more recent one. So statistically, it's roughly the same as the 10%. Hopefully, in the fall, we're looking for around October to do a variety of these sampling dates. To get a larger number of people. The idea is to test people multiple years in a row, see what the decay rate of the antibodies is, and then try to determine if there's any patterns in tick-borne illnesses, as well as a general prevalence rate for the island. As always, ticks are a constant concern on Nantucket. It's one of the larger public health issues on the island is tick-borne illnesses. Check yourself if you go out, use permethrin or DEET-based sprays or treated clothing, and just be careful. There are a variety of novel and more easier to miss ticks on the island, including the Lone Star and the Asian longhorn tick. So just check yourself if you're out. we're also following along with national studies and observation of the hantavirus cases. As of 5/15, the National Association of Health Officers reported that there are 11 cases of hantavirus, the Andes variant, which is human-to-human transmissible, but there's no confirmed Andes in the US among citizens, and there's no confirmed transmission between human beings anywhere that we're aware of. Finally, there was a Vibrio webinar today, or actually not finally, but there was a Vibrio webinar today. Vibrio is a bacterial pathogen that is in shellfish and seafood. Every year in the summertime, we get a few Vibrio cases. So we had a webinar today that the health inspectors attended that followed the inspectional process, the backtracing for disease investigation, and then did some best practices in handling and monitoring. And then finally, the town of Nantucket and the Nantucket Board of Health is a member of the Inter-Island Public Health Excellency Grant Organization. It's essentially a collaborative health collaborative that shares knowledge and expertise between the two islands and all the different municipalities of Martha's Vineyard. They are doing alpha-gal syndrome webinars. That is a disease that is delivered by the Lone Star tick that is very prevalent on Martha's Vineyard. The regional epidemiologist and the Martha's Vineyard public health biologist are doing webinars, which we're going to try and get links out to discuss alpha-gal, and then they do open office hours that you can join remotely that'll allow you to ask questions directly to the epidemiologist about alpha-gal and about the related issues in tick prevention and control. I believe that is the end of my director's report.
Madam Chair?
Jericho?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Hey, Madam Chair, Carrie.
Carrie does.
Carrie does.
Yeah, Jericho, do you have any information about the behavioral mental health survey
The
update?
needs assessment survey?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Human Services Comprehensive Needs Assessment Survey actually closed its survey component. We got about we actually got just shy of 700, no, I'm sorry, 600 total results, which is about twice what we were looking for statistical relevance. They're doing data analysis now, and that will be shared out initially through the Council of Human Services and the Contract Review Committee, where it's going to be used to prioritize human services grants for the coming year before we then take the completed report to present it to the Select Board.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Like, I get my hats mixed up sometimes.
Anything else? Okay, thank you, Jericho. There's a lot to think about.
Keeps me busy.
Yeah. All right, Andrew, are you here somewhere?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm online. So I've got our monthly PFAS update. John, if you want to share my slides, that would be great, but it's a relatively quick update, so I'll keep talking while you're pulling them up.
All right,
So
I just got to do share screen. That's
yeah.
it. Yep, I think that's the one.
Yeah, that looks good. So good evening, everyone. I'm Andrew Shapiro, the Environmental Contamination Administrator for the town, and I'm reporting on 21 new data points, all in private wells for PFAS sampling. So last month, I reported on 2 detects above the state standard of 20 parts per trillion on Arkansas Ave and Maya Comet Ave. I've included them in this report for completeness sake. There is a long lead time in terms of getting a data point and it actually making its way into this presentation, just because we have to get the packet in before the meeting. I'm also reporting on 6 detections below the state standard, but nevertheless detects of PFAS. You know, when we talk about PFAS with our residents, we usually discuss it in terms of human health risk rather than compliance. 20 parts per trillion is the state drinking water standard. It is the reportable concentration under the Massachusetts contingency plan, but PFAS can be a risk below that concentration as well. Perhaps most notably PFOA and PFOS have drinking water goals of 0. And as per usual, we do get non-detects for the PFAS-6. So I'm reporting on 13 non-detects for the PFAS-6. So that's 21 samples in all. We are seeing the number of tests ordered through the health department ticking up, probably as more people are on the island. So I expect to have more data to update you all on next month. And my apologies, but I don't have a map to share this month. I do plan on having a updated map at the next month's Board of Health meeting, and that will certainly include these latest detections above the state standard as well as the other data points on our map. And as always, I include our summary table of data. We have over 600 properties on the island sampled for PFAS, well, almost 600 to date. I can tell you that I do have some PFAS sampling data in my inbox, and so that number has likely exceeded 600 at this point. Since this is a relatively small update, no new information on the statistical distribution, so I won't jump into the details, but we do keep track of that. It can be helpful to look at. So that goes for the table and the histogram. Last thing, on June 17th, we will have a guest speaker in the very room you're all sitting in, as well as remote capabilities for Jim Starbird, who works at RCAP, which is a nonprofit dedicated to water and wastewater management in rural communities. Part of his presentation will discuss PFAS, but he'll also be covering broader well topics. That will be before the next Board of Health meeting. So this will be my last update to the Board of Health on this upcoming public information session. We did have an announcement go out through our town's communication office as well. And that's all from me for the evening. Thank you very much.
Anybody have any questions?
I have just kind of a general one. When this is for you, Andrew, this is Matt.
Matt.
When the state says it's non-detect, and sometimes the state says it's 0, but then I read the details and it looks like it's still above 0, but it's under their amount. Do they use that kind of interchangeably?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think kind of casually, non-detect and 0 could be interchanged, but technically they're not the same. Non-detect means that the instrument did not identify PFAS, and the instrumentation that registered labs use is very sensitive. It can detect PFAS down to very low levels, but it doesn't guarantee that there is no PFAS present. So non-detect is the best you can get, but it does not guarantee that there's 0 PFAS.
Just a follow-up. So if it's if it's 20 parts, if it's low and in where the state is, concerned about, they won't call it non-detect. They'll tell you what it is, right?
That's correct. So in the range of 2 to 19 parts per trillion, we have many detections of PFAS. The reporting limits are typically 2 parts per trillion for each individual compound under the drinking water test methods. And so I'm looking at the data right now, and PFAS are detected in about 38% of our sampling data, but they're detected over the state standard in only 10%. So I guess doing the math, 28% of all samples fall in that detect range, but not above the state standard.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Andrew, can I ask, every month you bring us these wonderful statistics and you tell us what's been found and all of that. Could you, in a layperson's way, tell us what this means? I mean, is it good news? Is it sort of not neutral news, or is it bad news? I have a little trouble kind of interpreting everything.
Sure. So, my primary goal is to report on the new detections. That is the most important for community awareness. I can tell you that having reported the detections on the new detections last month above the state standard, I've already had people call me to ask about them and ask whether they should sample their well. So that's my main goal. So, reporting to the public on the individual exceedances, I find to be really helpful for raising awareness. The detections below the state standard, but detects nonetheless, those are important too, and they go onto our map. Again, I have people who will look at the map and see it's a yellow dot, and ask, is the yellow dot concerning? And well, it can be concerning. And so people, that raises awareness as well. Then moving on to the tables and the graphs, those were, most important for my initial assessment of the data. I do kind of breeze over them these days, especially as we incrementally get more data. There's not that much change in our table. Having the number of properties sampled, I find to be helpful. The statistical distribution doesn't change that much, to be honest. Something I keep an eye on, but it's an incremental change.
Madam Chair, Carrie.
Gary?
Yeah, Andrew, what we are seeing though, I think, is a greater distribution of where we're seeing PFAS popping up on the island. Is that, I think, is that an accurate statement? Because, we've got the Floating Pond, we got Nantucket, we've got, it's not isolated at all from what, map, when you're looking at the last map.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, through our well regulations and our communications, we see more and more properties sampled, and unfortunately, we see more properties that have detects of PFAS. And as you test more, sometimes you get a detect in a surprising place. There haven't been anything new, particularly new in a localized area recently. But Mr. McKenna, you mentioned Fulling Mill. That was a big reveal back in the fall, and DEP has been out on site to be sampling there. So we do detect it in additional locations, and that really emphasizes the importance of testing. The state recommends that everyone get a PFAS test, whether you're near a source or whether you're not near a source. And we find that there is good reason to be doing that sampling.
Thank you.
Can I ask the two new detects that were above the 20 parts per trillion, so does that get sent to Mass DEP to like test the neighbors? And I know everyone that has a well nearby needs to be notified. Were they like, they weren't in the critical zone, so they were under 90, I'm assuming. I just didn't know if other detects had been nearby and this was Mass DEP or was us.
Yeah, great question. So anything over 20 gets reported to the state. It is technically the homeowner's responsibility to do that. I let them know that it is their responsibility to do that. I also typically report it to Mass DEP myself, just because we do keep in touch every once in a while. Mass DEP's policy, and this is their policy, is that they do on the ground investigations when they exceed the 90 parts per trillion imminent hazard threshold. Over 20 is certainly concerning. It doesn't always get Mass DEP out to the island. I wish it did, but that's the facts of the matter.
One other question, Andrew. I think Carrie sort of alluded to this. Is there a concern? Are you concerned? Should we be concerned that it seems to be popping up in more different areas? Or is that just that we're testing more different areas?
So I think the question is it a new issue or is it an underlying issue that was newly discovered?
Mhm.
You know, it's hard to say. I don't think we'll have a definitive answer. I do get many properties that do repeat sampling, and I don't include those in our summary statistics because it's often redundant. So I suspect as we get more people on the island this summer and we have more people testing, we're going to have more people doing a repeat test. And so, you know, if we have someone who jumps a category, that is concerning. And that suggests that there is a new, not necessarily a new release, but a new condition underground. It could be something that has migrated. And so that's something I'm going to be keeping an eye on this summer.
So that's something you're gonna be watching.
Yes, absolutely.
Anybody else?
I have a hand up, Meg Ruley. Okay,
Okay.
Meg.
Meg?
Hi, thanks. I just wanted to jump in and thank Andrew for his great reporting. And I think, you know, I'm an impacted party. I live on Tom's Way. There's a lot of data about Tom's Way. I've been to the Board of Health starting in December of 2023, asking you for your help when we discovered some of the highest levels of PFAS contamination in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts at that time. And, you know, there is no law that requires the state to notify neighbors. There's no law for the town to notify neighbors. And in our situation, it was in a pocket, and there are other hot spots around Nantucket. So your question of should this be a concern? I definitely think it is a concern. And Tom's Way is literally 400 feet from 3 of the town's municipal wells. So I think this is great that it's being tracked. And I think the more information we have is really helpful in decision making for Wannacomet Water, when they have to decide where to bring town water to protect residents of Nantucket. And I also think it brings to light, you know, we need to really be paying attention of what we're putting on the ground, what kind of materials we're using when we're building our homes, trash, all of those things. So I just wanted to chime in and share that as an impacted party. And when you are impacted with the numbers that we had, you're required, the state requires that your well be tested 3 times. So that's what Andrew's saying. There's repeated testing. Oftentimes it's a requirement.
Thank you. Anybody else, John? You see?
No, that's
Oh, okay.
it.
Andrew, thank you very much. I think everything you've talked about and all the questions that have been asked kind of bring to light and prove how important it is for us to be hearing this on a monthly basis. So this is great. Thank you. Number 6, 8 Creek Lane. Septic loan request. This property is in the Nantucket Harbor watershed.
Yep, so this is just a loan request. There was a failed Title V inspection back in January 6, 2025. And they're, of course, required to upgrade to an IA, and they're requesting the loan. And we, based on all the information we'd have, would recommend approving the loan in line with the board's policy for granting half the requested loan, as this is not the primary residence.
Okay. Anything we need to know? Out of the ordinary? No?
No, that's
Okay.
it's pretty status quo application.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, Jim?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Aye.
Matt? Carrie?
Aye.
Anne says yes. Okay. That loan is approved. Number 7. This is the continuation of the public hearing. And number 7 concerns the Hummock Pond watershed regulation amendment. Because it is a public hearing, are there any comments? Are there any comments from the public before we go on and consider how to address this?
I have Meg Ruley online.
Yes, Meg?
Hi, I'm sorry I can't be there in person tonight. But I have come to the meetings since, I want to say since January, talking about these new Title V changes, which I'm in favor of. However, I am very concerned that there is a special variance in both the Hummock Pond and the the tier two wellhead areas for affordable housing. I think the variance across all the wellhead protected areas should be the same. I have asked this question at the public hearings and I've been told that maybe you'll go back and change it for Nantucket in the Harbor Wellshed area. And I just think it's not, you are steering certain kinds of housing into two certain types of wellhead areas. And I think it should, the same variant should be across all the wellheads.
Madam Chair, Carrie.
Carrie?
Yeah, you can hear me correctly? Correct? Can you hear me well?
I can hear you online,
Yeah.
Carrie.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Yes, Megan brought this up before, and yes, I would agree that the rules should be the same across all four. What we started this process was to even out Hummock Pond and Wellhead with Nantucket Harbor and Matticat. As we went through this process, the issue of affordable housing came up, also on the issue of the ADUs, the other dwelling units. So we've worked those into this regulation, and yes, we would like to be able to go back and do the same for Matticat and the harbor water after these have been dealt with. So it's not that it's for sure, but not at this point. We wanted to stabilize these two regulations, and that'll give us the opportunity at that point then to go back, re-examine language across the other two, and unify the language across all four.
Thanks, Carrie. Are there any other comments from the public? Oh.
My reading of it, it says you may issue a variance. It doesn't say you shall issue a variance, correct?
Correct.
And so through the entire, so it's up to the Board of Health to determine whether the variant, if it's affordable housing and it's a really bad situation, you don't have to approve it, correct?
Correct.
All right, good.
Yeah, there's no requirement. Essentially, what the last phrase in the special variance section 288.7, we worked with the housing department. We had the meeting on March, I think it was 7th, where we met with the let's see, planning board, and let me see. Oh, 3/16. We met at the planning board. On March 16th, we met with the planning board, Affordable Housing Trust and us to address the express concerns and questions. And as a result of that meeting, we had follow-up meetings with the affordable housing folks to refine and develop wording that would indicate that the Board of Health will absolutely consider affordable housing, requests, but that we are not the affordable housing agency. That's up to Affordable Housing Office to determine if it qualifies for that. Throughout the process, we did get, town council had reviewed from the development of the regulation from, I guess, starting in January, we were submitting and getting tweaks on wording, and what's before you today has been reviewed and approved by town council. So that has been done. The accessory dwelling units, that came up as a result of a citizen question after one of our meetings. And then also listening at the annual town meeting and follow-up select board meetings, that has been a big issue on Island. And then we are aware that the several town departments are working on establishing how the island town will deal with this. So all we wanted to indicate that A, we are aware of that situation and that the Mass DEP has a guidance document about ADUs and septic systems. And that reference is made in each of these regulations also. And then when in talking with the housing department, one of the things we talked about was, if these are adopted, that we would like to work with housing and any of the other boards to develop a guidance document that will include information about tax credits, because there's more than what we have on island, about tax credits, loan programs, and even some key points about the process to kind of try to address some of the concerns people have expressed about just a very complicated process. Um, and, and as was discussed at the 316 meeting, the Board of Health would definitely be supportive of if the town developed any kind of new financial assistance programs to assist homeowners, much like was done with the Somerset sewer, where the town said that they will work in that cost to the bond issue. So, we definitely would support anything that would help homeowners with some of the extra costs, and also to make sure homeowners are fully aware of any other type of tax credits or loan programs or grants that are available for septic systems, and especially in rural areas, of which we are considered to be rural. So there are extra funds out there there are extra programs for that. That's my intro.
I have
Great,
a
thank you.
hand up from Dylan from the housing office.
Yes, Dylan. Go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. Through you, Madam Chair, I just wanted to say that I'm present at the meeting. I'm sorry I couldn't be with you in person tonight, and that it's been a pleasure to work with Carrie on these regulations. And to say, I have one minor suggestion, and I know that I've been a little bit of the bottleneck here with the craziness with town meeting and everything. I think if we could insert the word attainable housing, because affordable and attainable are different bylaws in our zoning code, but they're within the span of what the Affordable Housing Trust serves in terms of income restrictions. That would be my one suggestion at the moment. Obviously, Karen and I can continue that conversation offline, but I just really wanted to acknowledge I'm here if there's any questions for the affordable housing folks.
Hey, Dallas, Carey, do you have any, do you have in front of you the wording? Because
Yes, I
so it
do.
says, to meet the qualifying criteria for affordable or year-round housing. Would you take out affordable and say attainable, or would it be affordable/attainable? I mean, what would be the suggestion for that?
Through you, Madam Chair, thank you, Carrie. I would say, I'm looking at it, the qualifying criteria for affordable, attainable, or year-round housing.
Okay, so a comma, and then that word. Okay, no, thank you. So,
I have Meg's Ruley's hand up.
Meg?
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to circle back and, if, as Mr. McKenna mentioned, that, you are going to go back to these other wellhead areas to have a consistent variance for all wellhead areas, what would the timeline for that look like? And then the other question I had was, I know Mr. Dixon was very involved with working on this variance for attainable housing. And he does work in that area. I don't know if he still does, but that was never really disclosed, and someone brought that to my attention. So I just wanted to ask the board, was that influential in your decision making and including the special variance? And then lastly, not one individual in the tier 2 or the Hummock Pond wellhead area has come forward saying this is going to be a hardship with having the regular variance that was originally proposed. And so I just want to bring that to your attention as well. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.
okay, I mean, I can, Madam Chair, Carrie.
Yes.
I can speak that, Tom was involved in early discussions, but the development of the regulations that are before you in the last batch and the ones we went through were pretty much developed from the meeting on the 16th, and then working with affordable housing and myself. Tom saw what was presented at the meetings, what was presented at the Board of Health meetings. So that was his involvement, that he is concerned about affordable housing. Yes, I mean, Tom has always been an advocate for that. And I just think that he has he has a filter that looks at every issue to see if it's going to have a negative impact on affordable housing.
Thanks, Gary.
So,
And Madam Chair, I'll just say that town council's also online too, if anyone has any questions for town council.
well, Madam Chair, Carrie again. Sorry, would, and this is a question really for town council, would we be able to add the word attainable now and then
Yeah,
possibly go ahead and make a motion to adopt?
through you, Madam Chair, Alex Wysite from KP Law. To your question, Carrie, yes, I think you could, you could accept a minor amendment to the proposed regulations to incorporate that language.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
We have public comment from anyone.
Hi,
Willa.
excuse me. Hi, Willa Arsenault speaking on behalf of the Nantucket Land and Water Council. We appreciate the work that's been done on this, and certainly we recognize the importance of attainable and affordable housing to be considered through these variances. We've always been in support of this in this kind of language, particularly in the wellhead protection zone. And have I think a couple concerns about it being applied broadly to nitrogen sensitive areas like the Hummock Pond watershed, the harbor, Nantucket, just given the sensitivity of those areas to the nutrients that this is sort of specifically getting at. And I recognize that this language, as Mr. Fee said, the word may is in there, that the board may grant these variances. And I think we just would hope that the board uses its discretion to consider those nutrient inputs specifically in those sensitive areas as these are applied, if this is to be the wording that is applied. Thank you.
Thank you, Willa.
I have Dylan as his hand up again.
Yes, Dylan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dylan Mitchum, Peloton's Deputy Housing Director. I just want to say through you to Willa and to the board that, as you know, we worked with the Land and Water Council and our recommendations for this, and we understand their concerns for the Hummock Pond watershed and agree our concern is more about the wellhead protection district. So I just wanted to voice my support for what Willa just said.
Good, thanks. Are there any other comments? Good.
Not seeing
Madam
any
Chair,
online.
Carrie? Oh,
Carrie McKenna.
Yeah,
well,
Carrie?
are there any other comments? I want to say something after all the comments have been taken.
I don't see or hear any.
Okay.
I'll make, sorry, it's Matt. Carrie,
Okay,
one
good.
sec. I'll
Yeah,
make
go
one
ahead.
other comment. When we discussed this at the select board, it was a while ago, but one of the discussion points was a year-round system it will operate more efficiently and properly than these other systems that are, have to be ramped up every year. And
Mhm.
so, so there may be a balance here. If you've got a couple cottages and you've got a couple things that actually are serviced and are taken care of and don't have to ramp up, it takes, correct me if I'm wrong, 4 weeks, 6 weeks from when you start using this system at the beginning of the season for the system to start to actually work properly. And then, so there's a lag, sort of in these areas when these systems get started, they're not working. And then they get going and then they're working and then people leave again. And so in some ways, I think this could not be as bad as we might think, we would hope. And we will be checking it, I hope.
Yeah.
Well, if there are no more public comments, I think we could make a motion to close the public hearing and move on to addressing the regulation. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor? Jim? Mary?
Aye.
Carrie?
Aye.
And yes, and Matt.
Aye.
Okay. Now, that means that we are looking at knowing that there has been legal review of this proposed regulation amendment to the Hummock Pond Watershed District. I think we're at a point where we can take a vote.
Madam
Madam-
Chair,
oh.
Carrie?
Carrie,
Yeah, if we, I agree. Just like we would make a motion to adopt with the amendment that the phrase affordable, attainable.
right, I was about to
Is-
say that.
Yeah,
Okay.
just, get that phrase in there.
Using that slightly changed language of affordable,
So, comma, attainable.
attainable, obtainable, and or year-round.
Housing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So,
Do I have a
yeah.
motion?
sorry, Madam Chair, I was just gonna say, yeah, as long as that language is clear and town council feels that's
I think
that's
they said
good,
it was fine.
then
Through you, Madam Chair, I am comfortable with that language.
Okay. Do I have a motion to adopt this new amendment to the regulation using the three words affordable, obtainable, or year-round?
Motion to accept the Hummock Pond water regulations with the amendment, the explained amendment.
Second?
All in favor?
No.
Mary?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Chairman says yes. That passes 4-1. Number eight is not too different, but it is a different district. So we will discuss it, or we will bring it up as a separate thing.
Yes.
It is the Wellhead Protection District Regulation Amendment. There's a public hearing open on that still. So does anyone from the public wish to speak to the Wellhead District? Carrie, would you like to say anything about
Yeah,
this?
yeah, if there's no comments, again, the lead in is pretty much identical to what I said about Hummock, in that you know, there had been discussions going up to the meeting on 3/16 with the Planning Board and Affordable Housing Trust, is where we were able to kind of crystallize concerns, and then follow-up meetings were held. When I met with Dylan, it was with about both regulations were discussed at all meetings. So yeah, we didn't lump them together, but talked about Hummock and then talked about Wellhead. Again, similar to Hummock, it went through multiple town council reviews. With the regulation before you is the one that has been reviewed by town council. I would suspect if we go forward with the motion, we will also add the word attainable to the regulation, so it's similar to the Hummock. ADA/ADU statement is in there. And again, that, we are more than willing to work with the other, with housing and any other boards to help homeowners by developing a guidance document that will identify financial assistance and any other, maybe some process, your application process type information, to kind of make it a little easier. And we do have the betterment loan program. There are some tax credits out there for rural districts, et cetera, et cetera. But we would be very supportive to work with the town to maybe look at, for homeowners that may not qualify for those programs, to have some other program in place that could possibly assist homeowners that have, for the cost of the differential cost between a regular system versus an IA system. But essentially what you have before you is the regulation is identical. to the Hummock Pond one that we just talked about.
I have Meg Rulli as her hand up.
Yep, hi, Meg.
Hi, I live in the tier 2 wellhead area, and basically what I said for Hummock Pond, I would say again for the wellhead area, is that I don't think there should be special variances for 2 wellhead areas. And then when I hear Nantucket Land and Water Council saying how sensitive Mattocket and Harbor watershed areas are, so is Hummock Pond and so is the tier 2 wellhead, and they're all sensitive. And you have to trust that the Board of Health is going to make the right calls when they decide to grant variances. It's really frustrating. We have a lot of pressure, and there's not one individual homeowner that's come forward to any of the hearings on either of these 2 proposed changes to the septic system regulations, just the affordable housing group. And I did go to that meeting. They did not allow the public to participate. I did want to bring up some questions about it, but we were not allowed to have our voices heard. So I just, keeping that in mind with the variances, I really do hope you go back and have the same variance across the board for all the areas. I think that attainable and affordable housing should be allowed in all areas of the island and have the same benefits to these variances across all areas of the island.
Thanks, Meg. It sounds like that's going to be looked at. Is there anyone else that would like to say anything about this?
I would like to ask one question.
Yes, sir.
What is an undue hardship? Okay, you're trying to protect something, and then you turn around and anyone that's year round that has, says, it's a hardship, what do you end up protecting? If you're gonna make special variances for people to build on this stuff, what are you protecting? You're not protecting what you want, what you started out to protect. Everybody's gonna have a special variance.
Carrie, you want to speak to this?
Yeah.
I think it was very specific to a certain
Yeah, well, again,
situation.
the history of part of this comes from, we received many variances for very large houses. And I know that on the board, we all had expressed ongoing frustration. And in talking with in working with the affordable housing folks, housing office, and the criteria they would use, which would be probably smaller units. And essentially, these aren't party houses. These are houses for families to live year round. And the other thing is that just because someone has a request for a variance does not mean they're getting it. And I think the board has shown an increasing due diligence in really looking at and questioning variances. So a homeowner may request a variance, doesn't mean they're going to get it. It has to really show that it is going to meet the various, a special interest in terms of why that, essentially they got to present a good case as to why they should have a variance from, to be able to use the bedroom credit or whatever other reason. So, the thing is, even if we didn't put the special wording in, reality is, to a certain extent, anyone can apply for a variance at any time, but applying for a variance doesn't mean you're going to get it. So I think part of it is that, if we are committed to working to keep the water, our single source aquifer best we can, that's going to be pretty much the guiding principle of looking at any variance. So, I think, and based upon the feedback from across, besides the other boards and our own internal discussions as a board, and kind of listening to, others outside of those things, that to acknowledge that affordable, for the Board of Health to acknowledge the importance of affordable housing on the island, because one of the number one issues the select board also has, is, I think, an important expression in terms of really working together with other parts of the town to try to make affordable housing happen in an increasingly difficult environment to make that happen.
Thanks, Carrie. I actually also think that, in a funny way, this tightens up what we were faced with before, Jim. When everybody and anybody was asking for variance. This puts it within a very special category. And as Matt and a bunch of other people have said to us, it's not a pro forma thing. It's not, you're not necessarily going to get it. You have to have a really good case.
Well, I just asked my question, what is an undue hardship? If someone comes to you and they want a permit, what is an undue hardship?
Madam
What
Chair,
gives them
we
the
ask
right
that to-
to
can
build
we
the
ask that to
business
town
something
council
that
here?
we're trying to protect?
Yeah, let's ask. They're here.
yeah, through you, Madam Chair. So substantial hardship is a legal term of art, but just to kind of give you general sense of what it means. So it would mean a demonstrated, significant, and unique deprivation that would prevent strict compliance with the regulation. To claim a substantial hardship, the applicant would need to prove that enforcing the requirements of the regulation would be manifestly unjust when looking at all relevant facts and circumstances specific to that particular property. You could look at unique conditions on the property. A self-created hardship does not constitute a substantial hardship. And if applying the regulation would deprive the owner of any reasonable use of the property, then that could qualify as a substantial hardship.
Madam Chair, Carrie?
Yes.
And, Dylan, if you're still there, you can listen and see if I get this right. Our intention also was, not to get in the business of defining what affordable housing is, but that applications for that kind of variance would have to come with either the support or blessing of the affordable house, the housing department to ensure that the conditions for affordable housing were met. And then, the variance would explain any undue hardships if there was anything above and beyond that. So it's not really something that the Board of Health has to start getting into, is what's attainable, what's affordable. That's what the partnership with the housing department in that particular phrase refers to, is to help us, and help us and homeowners be able to determine appropriate applications and appropriate requests for variances.
I think it might be helpful to, if this were to pass, to have the legal definitions of undue hardship spelled out, so that at such time as we were requested to look at a variance, we would know what they are.
Madam Chair, Dylan has his hand up here.
Yeah.
Oh. Go ahead, Dylan.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Yes, Dylan Metropolitan's Deputy Housing Director. Through you, Madam Chair, I want to say that yes, that was part of the conversations that Carrie and I had, and the definitions of affordable and attainable housing and year-round housing are, in the town's zoning bylaws. So affordable housing is generally accepted as 80% area median income and below. Attainable housing is up to 250% with the acceptance of the seasonal communities designation, and year-round is understood as primary residence occupied 10 months and 1 day out of the year by the resident. If it's okay, I have a question for town council through you, Madam Chair.
Yes, of course.
And just also to provide a little more context, I think that a lot of the conversation at Board of Health and that Carrie and I had is about not necessarily about increasing development, although, for places where affordable housing development is possible, that's a plus. It's more about protecting the year-round and affordable homeowners from this increase in cost. So just to some of the previous comments have been made about building. This is really more about the people who are already there and who, if their system fails or if they are undertaking construction or the transfer of the property, are then faced with a very, very significant bill up to 200,000 plus annual maintenance. But through you, Madam Chair, to Town Council, I'm just curious if would, sort of that context of somebody coming to the board and saying, if I'm faced with these costs, then I will have to sell my home and move. Does that meet the standard of substantial burden?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Again, it would still be a discretionary call for the board, but it would be, in my opinion, it would be reasonable for the board to view that as a substantial hardship.
And Madam Chair, if I might just add one more thing. Part of this and part of, I think, the way Carrie and Town Council worked on this is so great, is that, understanding that sometimes the environment and housing, while they often go hand in hand, they can conflict. And so understanding that this is the Board of Health's responsibility to determine where there's an appropriate case that warrants a waiver or not, which I know is, I'm just sort of repeating what other folks have said, but I just wanted to emphasize that. Thank you.
Thank you. Willa?
Hi, Willa Arsenault for the Nantucket Land and Water Council again. I don't want to beat a dead horse, which is a terrible saying as I say it out loud. And again, we're in support of this language in particular for the Whalehead Protection District. But if the conversation is truly veering towards applying this to other protection zones like Nantucket and Nantucket Harbor, I think that the discretionary power could almost be like rolled back in that case, if that makes sense for the board. I see that this board and there's certainly a pattern of the board continuing to consider things like affordability and environmental concerns, but we don't know what future boards might do and what that might look like. And so I have concerns about lessening the impact that the current regulations for the other protection zones that are not being discussed tonight could have. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit rambling here, but I just, I would really, again, just emphasize the sensitivity of those areas, in particular for nitrogen. And the way Title V is working, if I'm understanding correctly, is to continue to protect those areas in particular. And so I just don't know if this language is quite as applicable for those zones as well. But again, in this particular topic where we are on the agenda, we are supportive of this language for the Whalehead Protection District. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that we are only in front of us right now is the Wellhead Protection District. We will at some later date perhaps address those others. But I think for now, we should be just focused on what's right here in front of us. And that is the wellhead. So I don't know, are there any other comments? You see anybody, John?
No one online.
All right. So I think if that is the case, we can close the public hearing pertaining to Chapter 382 Wellhead Protection District Regulation Amendment. Do I have a motion to do that?
Motion to close the public hearing for the Wellhead
Second.
Protection District.
Second.
All in favor? Jim?
What is the motion to?
We're closing the public hearing for this.
Oh, I agree.
Yes.
Yes.
Matt? Carrie?
Yes.
And says yes, we're closed the public hearing for the Wellhead Protection District. And I think I'd like to go ahead and take a vote to approve this amendment, again, using that language, inserting the word obtainable after affordable.
Madam Chair, I think maybe if you just want to be clear about it, that it's section 382, 7 special variance is where that language would be inserted into, just so it's clear
Yeah,
for the
okay.
record that
Yeah, that's right. I didn't say it for that. I said it for closing the public hearing, but we're talking about chapter 382, the Wellhead Protection District Regulation Amendment.
Section 7.
Sections. Okay. That's where this extra word will be inserted. That's really what we're saying. Yeah.
correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve this regulation?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Jim?
No,
Harry?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Ann says yes, that's approved. Okay. Number 9. 49 Paupus Road. Appeal of an order to connect to the town sewer. It's been continued since October of 2025 to allow the property owner to investigate cost to connect to the town sewer and to look into alternate options to pay for it.
Madam Chair, I have Arthur Reed has his hand up.
Hello, Arthur.
Can you hear me, Madam Chair?
Yeah, I can hear you, I think.
Okay, good. Thank you. Attorney Arthur Reed speaking. I have just been engaged this week by the property owner, Inez Hutton, who is present in the audience. I'm off island at the moment. And I would respectfully like to request a continuance on this until the July meeting to give me an opportunity to investigate the situation fully and present materials to support the request that the variance be granted and that the property owner be given a stay for the remainder of her ownership of the property, and so long as the existing system is functioning hydraulically. Ms. Hutton has owned the property since 1977. She's now over 80. She is living on a fixed income. At one time, there had been a commercial kitchen in connection with the property. That's no longer in use, will not henceforth be used. And it simply serves her own residence and cottage. The property, as you may have seen, is deep. It runs almost 400 feet deep from Pulpus Road on the south side of the road, farther away from the harbor. And the expense that we know we will incur on this is great, based upon the estimate that you obtained from an excavating contractor. And it also contains in that estimate a lot of unknown quantities that would add to the cost and that probably would not be able to be definitively established prior to the commencement of the work that would be needed in order to do this. There's no question that in the long run, this property should be connected to the town sewer and Pulpus Road, as is a normal requirement. But we are going to request that further relief be granted to her so long as she continues to own and occupy the property. With that said, and obviously we can answer any other questions that you may have to the best of our ability, but I would like a period until the July meeting. I'll actually be unavailable at the time of the June meeting, which is why I'm suggesting the July 16 meeting, that we would make our presentation. And appreciate your consideration of that. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Arthur. We've been talking about this for a long time. We have given continuance after continuance after continuance. And I'd like to request that, would you like to speak?
No, I'm just listening to you,
I
Madam.
was going to say, I'd like to request that John Hedden give some history and review of the situation at this property, and then the board will go over some of the considerations that we have looked at, some of the alternate ideas that have been presented, and all of that before we make any decisions, I would think.
Sure, I'll try and do my best to
Thanks, John.
summarize a bit here and some points that I brought up at last month's meeting. As you're aware, town sewer was run down Pulpus Road. It was part of the Shimo Needs project, which the town had voted on to sewer that part of the island to help protect Nantucket Harbor. And Chapter 332, Article 2, Board of Health Regulation requires the connection to town sewer within certain timeframes once the physical infrastructure is available to connect. For properties located in nitrogen sensitive areas or environmentally sensitive areas, that time frame is within 6 months of notice from what would be the sewer department, but in no case more than 1 year from said notice. My understanding is that the sewer department mailed out letters in 2019 to all the property owners, as well as in 2021 to notify them that the sewer was available. And then a few years ago, there was a proposal to get the commercial kitchen going again. Previously had been permitted as a commercial kitchen, one of the buildings on the property. And I was reviewing that food application and noticed that it said septic system on it, private sewer. And I realized that town sewer is available, so that was a trigger to say, wait, you have to connect to town sewer now since it's available. That's what regulation is, Chapter 332, Article 2. So that's how our office became aware of that, that the property wasn't in compliance with that regulation. And that's kind of the background of the property at this time, but I can try and answer any other questions.
Well, then
So
I
that's-
believe in 2023, there was a request for, that may have been about the time that you're talking about, there was a request for a variance or a continuation to, can you speak to that, John, for a minute?
Yeah, that's correct. So at the time when I was reviewing the food application, the property owner came in for a request of variance not to connect to town sewer at that time, which is in 2023. And at that time, the board allowed a 2-year variance to connect to town sewer. So a variance was granted back in 2023 for 2 years to
Johnny-
connect to town sewer.
John, excuse me, I don't believe I requested a variance.
We have it on the records. I have minutes of it.
I had primarily just come into, we were discussing just opening my kitchen, and it was a question of whether or not the sewer was whether my septic for the commercial kitchen was okay, and Stephen Visco came out and pumped it and said it was fine. I gathered in the letter that you sent me, you had stated that you'd grant me a variance then. I didn't purposely ask you for a variance previously.
Well, back in 2023. I have the minutes here from 2023, which was for a variance.
But I didn't submit any monies to you or a check for $50, or I didn't sign anything, didn't fill out any paperwork.
I'd have to go back and look in the file for that, but it wouldn't have gone to a meeting without filling out that paperwork.
I understand that, but I didn't fill out any paperwork with you or in the office, or I didn't give you any money. I didn't give you a check for 50. Isn't that required?
Yes, the variance back then, the fee was $20, and
I
that would
never
have
gave you
been.
any monies.
Hello, my name's Triskoffen. I explicitly asked you, John, about that. And you said it was not required. I stood in front of you, had the signed request for a variance, and said, I have a check for $50. And you said, this is not required.
So this is currently right now is an appeal of an order which our office sent out back in September of 2025. If you'd like to apply for a variance, you can.
I
Right
would.
now is what's in front of the board is the appeal of this order.
Well, what I'd like to apply for a variance, of course, and that's something that Arthur Reed was would help with, and so that's why he's primarily asking for continuance until July. That way, it gives us time to submit all the paperwork and everything, and whatever we need to for a variance.
Okay, well, the board is going to make a decision on the appeal, which was filed here. And I would guess if the board's going to deny or uphold the appeal and the order to correct, I'm not sure that a variance would be granted in the future.
Well, as it's stated in the letters, my letters to you, is that I cannot afford to put this in. And I person was giving you letters from my bank, and I'm gonna have to end up selling my house if necessary. If otherwise we're gonna have to go to court. I don't know what else to tell you all.
Okay, so my answer to that comment is that's for the board to determine, since
Okay.
you appealed the order which our office sent us.
This is why I want to apply for variance first before, you know. I don't know what else
This is
to
the
say.
sole occupant of that house. I don't believe that's, and I noticed the board has extended the distance between a well and the septic system to 150 feet. In its wisdom, it has determined the additional 50 feet was a wise move. So if 150 feet is good for a septic well separation, what about 10,000 feet to the harbor? Are you telling us that this actually is polluting the harbor? And I read that 165-page book that talks about the flow and the harbor protection area. It absolutely states that the main part is flow, because Upper Harbor and Pulpit Harbor is not getting washed out.
So,
Anyway,
sorry,
I
I'm just,
advise not
if
to
you can
speak
maybe
on it.
talk into the microphone, it might
Well,
help in terms of volume.
what I'd like to do is apply for variance and see whether or not it's possible for Arthur Reed and myself, Patricia, to come before the board in July and have all the paperwork in order, because I believe it's 2 weeks. And since Arthur can't be here in June, I think it's 2 weeks that the application has to be applied for variance.
So I would advise you can certainly apply for a variance if you would like to.
Yes, it would.
Currently, there is another matter, which is the appeal of the order which the health department office sent to you. And the
Right.
board is going to make a determination to either take that appeal back or to move forward with that order that our office sent and require the connection.
Okay, I'm confused because since we've been here, since my son and I got here in September and then October and then January, how I don't understand why the appeal hasn't been brought, why it hasn't been discussed previously. I mean, I've stated my reasons why I can't apply, why I can't do the apply the law for the sewer. So we could sort of at a stalemate here, I'm thinking.
If I
don't
may,
know-
Madam
I don't
Chair.
know what to do.
Was that?
Arthur reads
Yeah.
online.
Yeah, thank you. Basically, with that being the pose of it at the present time, and again, I just came into the situation, I would request once again that this hearing on the appeal, which is the way that you're treating it, and I gather that is in fact what's before you, be continued and stayed until the July meeting, at which time we will present it, and also I would expect that between now and then we would submit a further application for a variance so that the whole matter could be heard in an orderly fashion and determined at that time. And that would be our request. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Carrie?
Kerry can go first, then I'll go.
Yeah, yeah, and I guess, I know Jim had expressed that he would be willing to work with the homeowner at the last meeting, and I was just wondering if there was any thing that we should be continuing or any information that would help one way or the other.
You were gonna, we
I
gave her
spent-
1 month and let to
I
for you to
I went out and spent a half a day there.
talk your mind.
I spent a half a day out with these people trying to come to some kind of an agreement or try to find a way to do what they need to do. The system they have is obviously not what it's supposed to be because you want them to tie to the sewer. But the system they have is perfect. Everything works. Okay, their land is lower than the street. They're over 700 feet back. And you have what you have, and everything that they have works perfect. And if it's just a case of going to tie into the sewer, I would guess it would cost more than $500,000 to run that sewer line from their house over 700 feet to the street. But you have what you have. I mean, it's just, I don't know what you're gonna do. I try to work something out, and I spent a half a day, and we looked at every avenue that we could think of, and they have what they have, and it works. But obviously, the town wants them to tie into the sewer, and if that's what has to happen, someone has to come up with a whole lot of money.
And I'm going to ask Arthur, I think. You were what I heard, Arthur, there is currently a commercial kitchen, but you are representing that there would not be a commercial kitchen any longer, that this would be a 1-person or a 2-cottage property for the near future. Is that?
Yes, that's right, Matt. Ms. Hutton has not operated the commercial kitchen for several years. And she's not going to in the future. At the present time, she lives in the house, and there's a small unheated cottage where her family members stay during the summer, but that would be the entire use of the property solely as residential use.
And I know that this group, I know you have worked on this. I've read some of the minutes. You've worked on this a long time. I think a couple more months in light of what you're saying about how far it is, et cetera, and what they've represented. I think a stay of this would be okay. I also think that there could be some terms and conditions put on that so that the pressure from that system isn't a commercial kitchen and a bunch of other things. It's a couple houses. And I think that might be something that the board would be able to see their way to giving a variance for, with the understanding if and when it is sold or moved along, it would be brought up and taken care of. Something like that. Would that work?
Well, I think we have a couple of facts in front of us here. One is, from the minutes, of 2023. Motion to approve the variance for 2 years as long as the septic system passes inspection and will have 2 years, May 21st, 2025, to tie into town sewer. So that was, there was in 2023, that decision was made and that they had until May 2025. In the winter, this board asked the homeowner, we have an estimate from Toscana for $125,000. This board asked the homeowner to obtain 3 other estimates. I have no record that that was done. We also asked the homeowner to look into whether it would be possible to rent one of her outbuildings to produce some income to pay for the cost of connecting to the sewer. So there've been a lot of exceptions and a lot of thinking done how to possibly accommodate difficulties having to do with this. And I feel like, I don't know if the rest of the board agrees with me, but we've been continuing and continuing and continuing. I feel that the agenda item that is on the item on the agenda is appeal of an order to connect. So we're not really talking about a variance or anything like that. We're talking about this particular thing.
Madam Chairman, we, in trying to get 3 other estimates from people, is almost literally impossible to do. Nobody would even think about, unless I was going to go through with this, and there's too many variables about what is going on in the driveway, which they would not want to be responsible for. There's between the electricity and the Comcast and everything else that also supplies my neighbors.
In addition, we submitted a piece of paper from Blackwell Associates saying a plan would cost $10,000. Nobody, Toscana, if you look at Toscana's proposal, it's missing half. It recognizes that. It also says the homeowner must be liable. First, they won't even give an estimate until that $10,000 was going to cost $10,000. Engineers plan in front of them, and they go from there.
Christina Jelemy told me, she said, there's no way that I can possibly give you, I'll give you a rough estimate. And that's what the estimate that I got from her, from when you required it. She said, for us to even think about doing this on a full scale, she said, it's be way beyond what our estimate is.
I've been a contractor for 50 years. Nobody wants to just sit down and spend 2 or 3 days working up a proposal. Just because the board wants 3, I believe it says only 1 is required. You're not required to take the cheapest one. Isn't that correct, John?
That's for the loan program. I believe the board had requested the 3 loans, as I recall. And if I can just please clarify for the record, as Chief Environmental Health Officer with the Health Department for the town of Nantucket, I'm an agent for the Board of Health, and these are their regulations which I enforce. I do not make those decisions for regulations. I do not vote on these regulations. Thank you.
Excuse me. The estimate they got from was $185,000.
25. I've got it right here in front of me.
How much?
125.
125?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Would you like
And
to
that
see it?
was only for their part of the thing. That was nothing to do with the rest of the stuff that they had to do. That was just what that contractor, what his part was. So it was basically nothing. The thing is, if it comes down to have to tie into the sewer, this whole thing is going to be nothing but money. Where's the money coming from? And I'll bet you it's going to be $500,000 to run that line to the street.
I guess I have a question. It seems that you have that they and the board have struggled with it because of the cost. It feels like the board has been aware of the cost and the impact. And you've both have been, it seems like you've struggled with trying to find a way forward. Yeah, so I'm not saying, I think that you've done that. My guess is you've done that in good faith, and my guess is they've done it in good faith. And so my hope would be that, with Arthur involved, maybe there's a way forward. That's why I made the suggestion I did is, and I think if I heard John correctly, if you did, if you make a decision today, it might make it hard to undo it 2 months from now, if you uphold it. And is that, did I hear you correctly? That if they make, we've sort of, it's being presented now as, sort of two choices, either uphold it or not. But is there, and I'm hearing this sort of, I'm saying you could stay it, and there's a third path where you go down the middle a little longer, so you don't take the yes or the no and give it 2 more months. Because I do, and I don't, and I know that you've been at it a long time and probably don't want to hear that, but I think that this seems to me it would be a credible case for hardship. $500,000 on a fixed income, it's almost a definition. If it's going to cost $500,000 to do it, no offense, but but on, sort of.
But you've got to be aware that 2 months, nothing's going to change.
Well-
Nothing's going to change in 2 months. Nothing's going to change in 2 years until someone makes the decision that that's the only thing you have. That's the only way out.
Right.
John, could you read, if you have it anywhere near you, the regulation that requires connecting to the sewer? Do you have that somewhere handy?
Let's see if I can. I mean, I do. I have
I
it
think
here.
you did it earlier.
It's chapter
Yeah.
332, Article
Yeah.
2, connections to new and existing publicly owned sanitary sewers.
What you-
332.11.
what you showed me that time was so clear, that, but, the reason that I think I smiled at you, Matt, is that this, it's always next month, and that's it, next month, and that's it, next month, and that's it. And so, at what point is it really it?
I don't understand your hurry, Madam Chairman.
But
Well, since 2019, but I think, is there some way that we could come up with something that says, yes, we will give, Arthur Reed asked for till July.
Right.
Is there some way that we could then not have it be 2 months and 2 months and 2 months and 2 months after that? Can we write some sort of a motion that would say that?
We did last month.
That's what I thought.
Tom
Tom Dixon wrote it.
Yeah, Tom wrote.
Madam Chair, you're dealing with an impossible, there's no way to handle this. There's no way to go through with it. What are the penalties? There's no way to handle this.
I can't afford this. I mean, I'm
It's
gonna have to
possible.
sell my house.
Are you gonna force a year-round off the island to sell her house?
Where am I gonna move to?
And that's not polluting the harbor in any shape, form, or fashion. I still want an answer, as I asked you numerous times previously. If a well is okay, you increase it to 50 feet to make it even more safe. What is 10,000 feet to the harbor? Can you prove this septic system in 47 Pulpus Road on the other side of Slozak's farm is doing any damage? Can you prove that?
When the districts were drawn, I am sure it was not drawn capriciously. I am sure it was done based on movement of water and things like that. This is not my area of expertise.
Have
but
you read
I-
have you read the 165 page? It has nothing to do, the flow that they talk about.
The
do with the
purpose
rinsing
of this is not to determine whether or not DEP's evaluation of the watershed was correct. The purpose of this is to determine whether or not the order to connect should be appealed or continued, and then if a variance needs to be issued from there. There's not really a great case to relitigate the determination of the watershed areas in this context. So I don't know that that's necessarily the best use of everyone's time.
Okay, well then, all I know is that Arthur had said that by July, for once in a while, we'll have paperwork, whatever is necessary, so we can seriously discuss this in all, from A to Z. But why this is not feasible for me to do.
Can I make a comment through you?
Yeah,
Ann?
of course.
So I have struggled with this since it has been on our agenda. I am concerned with the fact that all of the neighbors, when this was first brought, all of them had to hook up at expense, and all of them got together. I mean, I just worry about what precedent this sets, just because it does say no variance shall be granted, and that all of the neighbors, and I feel for you. I'm not saying I'm one way or the other. I just
Don't have the
struggle
same
with,
situation.
huh?
The neighbors don't have the same situation I do.
I am just saying that I struggle with the fact that everybody else in the whole area that had to hook up, I think hooked up. So I just struggle with that because it doesn't seem fair.
It
I
says
guess, but I'm
unless it
not,
provides unjust damage to property or owner. This is unjust damage to the owners. There's no way to handle this. This is a 700-foot problem. The other people ran to Kelly Road. It was much shorter. You're making a mockery of the entire concept of a variance.
I would like to get this settled, and I think Mr. Fee's idea of giving it until continuation until, as Arthur Reed is asking, until July, with the understanding that the can will not be kicked down the road over
Sorry,
and over and
Madam
over.
Chair, Kerry has his hand up.
Yes, sir. Yes, Carrie.
Yes, I agree with Matt and you. I know we've been kicking it down the road, and I have several issues I would like, with Arthur on board. The issue of the commercial kitchen, if it's a functioning commercial kitchen and is legal, can it be rented out? If they and one of the correspondences several months ago, I thought it said that the commercial kitchen was going to be turned into an apartment. So, I would like to have that issue sorted out. Is it a functioning commercial kitchen? Then could it be rented, which could produce income? If it is going to be turned into an apartment, that can produce income. So I'd like to kind of get some of the edges sorted out. And, we have a range of 125,000 to 500,000. That's a pretty big range to work in. If there is something that can be done to at least get a more accurate number, we throw out the 125, we say that's not all the work. 500,000, is that a real number, or is that just, pie in the sky? I mean, so we're being asked to decide about putting a variance on some place where it says variances can't be granted, and I still think there's information that should be presented that could at least help the argument. And I know that Arthur is, this is the kind of stuff that he could help us with a cleaner kind of addressing these questions, and we address the July meeting, and we will have to act. And I think as Tom said last month when he said that, he was up for a continuance, but we have there is a regulation that says no variances are granted, so we have to come up with something. We need to have real solid information in order to proceed, period. If we're going to say deny it, we need to have a good grounding, and if we're going to allow it to continue the way it is, we need to be on good ground. And right now, I don't feel we're on good ground.
I have a
Yes.
question. How soon would Arthur have to have the material I would want the material to this, to staff in time for it to be reviewed by town council on our end. So if the goal is to make a decision in July, then I would make sure the material from Arthur was in with plenty of time for the town to do any work it has to be done. So if your goal is to move this along, make sure you have time to
Yes.
look at everything and craft, and have any concerns addressed. You know, and I look at it slightly differently from you know, oh geez, let's get them the commercial kitchen running again, and let's get let's get short-term rentals in. I look at it differently. Let's keep it as minimal impact as possible if there's going to be, and let Arthur put something in that says this will be fixed in the future when this happens. You know, put some other restriction so that you know that what's happening now, which is a few people into a small septic, septic is what is happening, not an increase of use that's, you know, putting more pressure. So I think that there may be something that he can come back with or will craft that would make the board, you know, make the board happy that it's going to be less impact on the harbor, and that in the future, if it sells or if it's being developed or there's any changes, then they will comply because they're putting more value in and they have to. And so that would be sort of the hope that would hope something like that was crafted. So.
If I may, obtaining the information that you're all asking for right now is exactly the reason why I need the period of time in order to pull it together. And I agree, you certainly should have the opportunity to review all those materials well in advance of the July meeting that we would propose to present it at. I would say you should have it at least 2 to 3 weeks ahead.
That would be good. That would be good. And I think you've heard some of the things that we're asking to understand and to hear about that we have asked over and over, which is an accurate estimate, more than one estimate, the possibility of income from the outbuildings and all of that kind of thing. I think, as well as some sort of alternate plan. So, if you can work on that, Arthur, I think we maybe could make a motion to continue it until July.
You are aware it's going to require $10,000 to get a plan for anybody to bid on.
I would say let's let Arthur come back to us because I have moved buildings and been building employee housing, and everything is a multiple of 5,000. So he's correct. You dig a hole, it's $5,000 or it's 10 or it's 15. So I think that, you know, I think let Arthur come back with, you know, what he's going to come back with, I would suggest.
Thank you, Matt.
Okay, I think we're gonna need a motion to.
I'll make a motion to hold this until July to with the understanding that Arthur will work on the details and get them to this board 3 weeks, at least. Is 3 weeks enough, John?
Yeah, that's plenty of time.
Yep,
So
3 weeks before, so the town council and the staff can look at it and, you know, put a recommendation to the board, to this board of, you know, what will work and why, or why it won't, so that you can make a final, or we can make a final decision.
I'll second that.
Right, all in favor? Jim?
You made the motion, second,
I seconded it.
okay,
Are you in favor?
yes.
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 Okay,
Yes.
and yes, okay. That's what we're gonna do. We are going to have Arthur Reed enter the scene and,
Arthur has his hand up. Is that?
uh-oh.
No, that's residual. I can lower it.
Okay,
And thank you very much.
okay,
I was hoping you weren't saying no.
yeah.
Definitely not.
We just put a lot of work on your plate.
I understand.
All right, thank you.
all.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
number 10. I'm gonna read what it says, the agenda item. 'Cause I want to make sure that the agenda item is the agenda item. Update on pre-testing agreement for Vita Capizzo Stadium renovation project. No votes scheduled. So we're going to hear, last month, as everyone probably knows, the board moved to agree to have a sort of a working group consisting of the health department, school system, and Land and Water Council to work together to make some testing recommendations. And I think that Jericho has a little bit of a presentation to tell us what's what.
I'd say presentation is probably a little too strong a word. I'll give an update on progress made on an agreement between the town and the health department regarding the specifics of the testing regime that will be applied to any materials before they are delivered to Nantucket. The current agreement or provisional agreement on the pre-testing is largely completed. There's one particular item that has to deal with a relatively naughty bit of analytic chemistry regarding the testing of an adhesive and the particular method of that test. That is the only significant delta we have between the Land and Water Council's recommendations on pre-testing and on the school's willingness to test. This includes specifically the materials and the number of said materials to be tested, the standards to be used, and the nature of the tests. The sticking point on the adhesive is specific and relates to the way that an adhesive has to be tested differently than other materials do. I think that one needs to go back to the school in order to be looked at. The school understandably asked for a delay in continuing discussion until after the ballot. And I believe Dr. Hallett is currently, I think she's chaperoning a school trip at this point. Oh, excellent. Yeah, I'll run through the updates and then we'll do the two sides and then we'll do public comment briefly. So that is largely it. I expect that we will be able to resolve the adhesive testing thing shortly, and then we will be able to bring the first part back for approval for a memorandum of understanding between the school and the health department, and then we can move on to the track information and the any ongoing monitoring that may take place. It's basically the update.
Okay, great. It sounds like you're very close to.
The pre-testing, I would say we are, yes. If anyone has any specifics, I'd rather not discuss the nature of it because it hasn't been shown, like the specifics of it, it hasn't been shown and agreed upon yet, but it is largely the same as the proposed testing and standards that were done in the, I believe it's the February meeting, and the uncontroversial part of the agreement is in accordance with Land and Water Council's requests on pre-testing.
Did you guys, I think there were some people who wanted to.
Sure. I think we can go school and Land and Water Council. If you guys want to rock, paper, scissors for it.
All right, I don't know that this is necessary because Jericho just covered it all, but I am here. I'm Melissa Devitt. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Academic Operations, and I'm here for Dr. Hallett. She is off island on a field trip. I would like to say good afternoon, and Dr. Hallett would like to clarify one point raised in recent correspondence sent to Chair Smith by Willa Arsenault of the Land and Water Council on May 15th regarding the Vito Capizzo Stadium project and the ongoing conversations between the Nantucket Public Schools and the Nantucket Land and Water Council. Nantucket Public Schools has not declined requests to continue discussions regarding the project. Prior to the annual town election, I communicated with both Emily Molden and the Nantucket Land and Water Council and Jericho Mealy of the Nantucket Department of Health that we were respectfully requesting a temporary pause in discussions until after the election process concluded. This request was made to ensure the project first received the necessary approval from the community before additional conversations continued. The pause was never intended to signal a refusal to engage. In fact, our team remains committed to continuing collaborative discussions. At this time, no bids have been published and project designs are being finalized, so there remains adequate time before any construction activities begin. We are simply requesting that future conversations resume once the full project team is available, which we anticipate will be after June 1st, and we remain committed to maintaining open communication and working collaboratively as the project moves forward. Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying.
Hi, Willa Arsenault for the Land and Water Council. To begin first, through the board, thank you very much for those clarifications. The statement in my comment letter was not to accuse the school of any sort of refusal to meet, but certainly just to update the board of where we stood at this point, which is to say that we haven't been able to meet with the school throughout the last month. And so at this point, I just would I'll real quickly, sum up what was in the letter that I submitted earlier this week or at the end of last week. So thank you for the Board of Health to continue to engage seriously with this issue and for the parties working collaboratively towards a testing and monitoring framework for this project. As we've said throughout this project, the Land and Water Council's involvement has been grounded in our mission to protect Nantucket's land and water resources. This project is proposed directly within the Zone 2 Wellhead Protection District over our sole source aquifer, and the track and field systems are specifically designed to infiltrate stormwater into the groundwater system. At this stage, our requests have been narrowed to what we think are 3 very reasonable and attainable standards. We've submitted these requests in more detail with the comment letter. But to summarize, first, what we're asking for is a comprehensive testing of the turf system itself, including the turf fibers, the backing, infills, shock pads, adhesives, and associated materials. We continue to believe that method 1633, SPLP, and a TOP assay represent valuable tools for evaluating detectable PFAS, but leachable compounds and precursors that may transform over time. Second, we are requesting the same testing protocol be applied to the synthetic track materials. There's less publicly available data on track systems, but many of the characteristics are similar, including long-term outdoor durability and weather resistance to those PFAS-containing materials. And so we find it important to test those. And third, if this project is to proceed, we continue to believe that baseline and ongoing groundwater monitoring is appropriate and necessary. The purpose, though, of this monitoring is not to attribute contamination to a single source. We're not trying to point fingers, but we're trying to establish a baseline condition to identify changes over time and to support long-term informed decision-making. I do want to reiterate, though, that these requests are not intended to eliminate all uncertainty or to guarantee zero risk. They are intended to reduce uncertainty as much as possible using the available science we have and to ensure that decisions are being made with complete information or the most complete information possible, really. Ultimately, we do believe that these are modest and achievable standards given the sensitivity of the project location and the importance of protecting Nantucket's drinking water resources. And we're really looking forward to continuing to work with the school, and we appreciate the collaboration that has taken place thus far. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Brent Tardamella, 20-year resident and parent, and I've been following this closely. As you know, my question here tonight is more about process. The town of Nantucket has an established relationship with Weston and Sampson, a nationally recognized interdisciplinary engineering and environmental firm. They're currently conducting many projects on island, the sewer district master plan for the town, including the exploratory design work for the Somerset Needs area, as well as the information for the Parks and Rec master plan and the phase of Tom Nevers' environmental cleanup. So these involve tens of millions of dollars of public infrastructure and environmental responsibilities. And in every one of those cases, the town has trusted Weston and Sampson's independent analysis. Weston and Sampson has reviewed the Capizzo Stadium renovation plan. They've evaluated the proposed testing protocols and supported the approach being taken. So the question tonight is, why is Weston and Sampson good for millions of dollars of town projects, but all of a sudden they're conveniently disregarded when it comes to the athletic complex? What's changed? What standard is being applied here in this conversation that is not being applied everywhere else Weston and Sampson works on behalf of the town? What makes it harder to understand is what appears to be filling that gap. The Nantucket Land and Water Council is an advocacy organization. They do important work, but they are not a certified regulatory body. They hold no official position within the town of Nantucket's governmental framework, and they are not independent. They have a stated position on the project, and they have been working against it. They are a biased organization from that perspective. I'm not questioning their right to advocate, of course, but I am questioning why an advocacy organization with a predetermined position is being elevated in this conversation over a firm that this town pays, trusts, and relies upon for its most consequential environmental and infrastructure decisions. It seems like it's just not clear, right? I'll just say it seems like it's a little more maybe backdoor stuff from a board that's fighting hard to regain integrity and trust within our community, the same community that supports the athletics complex. And let's not forget TRC Companies, a global company based in Connecticut that has spent half a century focused on evidence-based strategies. Just that. They will be vetting our pre-installation testing, which has already been described as aggressive and conservative. The team has also been working with and qualified by the town of Nantucket on other island projects. So this is two incredibly knowledgeable firms that have already been aligned with and supported by and qualified by the town of Nantucket without being dragged through the muddy, unsafe fields. This community has voted twice in support of the project. The voters have spoken, the school committee has done its due diligence, Weston and Sampson and TRC have done the work. We are simply asking this board to apply the same standards of rigor to the project that it applies to every other project the town undertakes. Nothing more, nothing less. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Kate Garrett. It's important in this conversation remains grounded in evidence, balance, and consistency. This project has already undergone an extraordinary level of scrutiny. Independent engineers, environmental consultants, toxicologists, and the school committee have all evaluated it. It passed by 2/3 at annual town meeting and by almost 60% at Tuesday's election. Democracy has spoken twice. Once again, it will go through pre-installation testing with protocols vetted by Elizabeth Denley. She is Vice President, PFAS Initiative Leader, and Chemistry Director at TRC Companies. TRC is a leading global consulting, engineering, and construction management firm that provides environmentally focused solutions. Ms. Denley has delivered hundreds of presentations to regulators and industry experts and has also served as chair of a municipal board of water commissioners. She has herself described the proposed testing protocol as aggressive and conservative. It is also worth noting that the town has relied upon and entrusted TRC for various other projects on Nantucket. I would like to raise an issue of consistency. When a public school athletic project receives an intensity of scrutiny that other synthetic surface installations within the same wellhead protection zone do not, it does create the appearance of a fundamentally different standard. And I do think that warrants an honest and transparent conversation. Recent discussions have expanded beyond the turf field to include scrutiny of the proposed track surface and associated materials. Yet playgrounds and recreational services across Nantucket, also within the wellhead protection zone, containing synthetic materials, coatings, adhesives, binders, and engineered components have not been subjected to the same level of review. Similar products at other facilities within the same wellhead protection zone are moving forward without comparable scrutiny. The grass fields at Nobadeer and Delta Fields, also within a wellhead protection zone, require massive amounts of fertilizer annually. If we are truly concerned about what enters our groundwater, the conversation cannot begin and end with just this project. The same standard should apply across all comparable projects within the recharge zone. Most importantly, let us please distinguish between the presence of detectable compounds and actual demonstrated exposure risk. That distinction is at the heart of responsible public health decision-making, and this community deserves nothing less. Thank you.
Thank you. You see anyone online, John?
Nope, no one online.
No.
Thank you, Chair. I think, does the board have any comments that they would like to make?
I just appreciate that the school is willing to go be at the table with this with the Land and Water Council and the Health Department. And I appreciate all of the meaningful discussion you guys are having, and that you're really looking into this and taking this seriously, because I think it's an important topic. So I appreciate all of you being able to collaborate and come to the table, and sounds like coming to the table next week. So thank you.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. The idea of people of these groups working together is a very heartening and good thing to see. The purpose of the Board of Health is and has always been to be careful about the health and safety of all citizens of the island, and working with other groups and coming up with a good solution is important. Harry, you have anything?
No, I mean, I agree with the cooperation and, my hope is that, yes, we learn about these materials, but, it will put us in a better position to question other materials potentially because we only have a single source aquifer and somewhere we have to always be mindful of that. And that's what all the regulations, we're the Board of Public Health and we don't want to get into building and stuff, but we do need to look at health and keep the health of the aquifer is a really primary thing. So I'm not against, I don't see the extra questioning being negative. I see it being positive because there are questions out there, and working with the existing contractors as well as the on island organizations and the town, we'll be in a better place, not just for this project, but potentially future projects, because we have to understand the impact of what we don't know right now. And there's a lot of stuff that shows potential harm, and we need to be working with all the agencies, local, state, federal, whatever, to get us and hopefully other places in a better position to make decisions about how we maintain the long-term health of the island. So I'm supportive of collaboration.
I would just suggest, and Jericho knows this because he's heard me say it before, that time is of the essence, and I know that they're working as speedily as they can to get it all figured out.
That's the intent in ironing out the pre-testing first is just to be as prompt on that as we can.
Matt, were you about to say something?
No, I was going to say something. I don't
All
really.
right.
Basically, I'm just glad that you are taking this route and that you're working together. I think that makes a lot of sense. And we talk about, sort of trust. There's trust from different sides. And I think if the Land and Water Council signs off on it and the school signs off on it, then I think both sides are covered and you'll bring this community together. And I think that should be the goal. It should be the goal with the school project, and it should be the goal with the community. And I think, I didn't know that you had done, until I'd read the packet, I didn't know you'd put this together. I've been paying attention, but I missed that. I missed that memo, and I think you've made, you made a good choice. So thank you.
Well, where's something else?
Just in the interest of absolute clarity, so in the next month before the next meeting, maybe this is through you to the school, it sounds like the school is willing to meet to continue to discuss what was in our comment letter. And I don't know if there's anything, and again, I'm just trying to be as expedient as possible, knowing that the timeline, if there's any comments about what was in the comment letter that you had any concerns about tonight to comment on. Oh, okay, great. Thank you very much for the clarification. Appreciate it. And thank you.
And then I will, as soon as we lock a time down, I'll share the draft provisional. It's basically a rearrangement of the first two meeting, like the output of the first meeting and then the comment letter you guys had, then put into a new document. We'll share that around. We should have the working version of the provisional pre-testing as soon as we get a chance to meet with the school, and then we'll iron out whatever differences were made.
Okay, thank you all very much.
Okay, whoa, we're on 11. introduction of short-term rental correction letter to be used when STR owners are non-compliant with registration requirements. Okay.
Good evening, Madam Chair. I'm gonna take the lead on this one. Hi again, Andrew Shapiro, Environmental Contamination Administrator. And I'm here tonight to present a template notice of violation and order to correct related to our short-term rental bylaws and regulations. So just a little bit of background on this one. Short-term rentals, STRs, I'm sure we all know that abbreviation, are required to be registered before they operate. And all advertisements need to include the registration number. So essentially an STR that is not registered cannot advertise. So our short-term rental community liaison reviews advertisements, looks for listings that are not registered. We have a lot of STRs that are registered, just over 1,600 last I checked. But we still do find some unregistered STRs out there. And when that happens, we reach out, and in most cases, the rental is promptly registered. This letter that is in the packet is for STR operators who have already received an initial letter or email. So this letter is for operators that we have still not heard back from. So what's included in this order, in this letter? The operator receiving this letter will be required to reach out to our health department, and they will have the option to register their rental or to remove the advertisement if they don't plan on renting their dwelling as an STR. And if we hear back within 14 days, the operator will avoid potential enforcement actions and or penalties. Otherwise, we may pursue further enforcement actions. So the letter that you have before you in your packet was drafted by the health department, and town council has provided edits, and that version that has been reviewed by town council is what appears in your packet. This is a template, so obviously we would fill in the relevant placeholders such as the address, the URL, the name of the operator, etc. But tonight, what we're seeking is a motion from the board to essentially approve this template for use if the board so wishes. That's all I've got for now. I'm, of course, happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions on this letter? I think it's pretty clear.
Are we looking for approval of the letter? Is
I think
that?
so.
I'll move, all right, I'll move approval. I think it's really well done. I'll move approval.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, Gary?
Aye.
There? Okay,
Yep, aye.
good. That's unanimously approved. Anybody who doesn't register gets this letter. That's the first step. Okay, so.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Yeah.
Aye.
Okay, wonderful.
Aye.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, man. That's it. That.
Thank you.
Yeah.